Afia, who is represented by her Special Assistant on Economic Policy, Dr. George Okori. Can we please give her a round of applause? Dr. George, thank you very much for being here with us. We also want to recognize Mrs. Hawa Wakili, who is representing the Nigerian Communications Commission. Mrs. Hawa, thank you so much for being here. Can we please give her a round of applause? Thank you. And now, straight away into the next keynote, where we're looking at enabling digital public infrastructure for inclusion and economic development. To talk to us about this, I'd like to please ask that we give an applause as I welcome the Deputy Director of Program Advocacy and Communication for the Gates Foundation. Please welcome with me Mr. Ekenem Isiche as he comes forward. Can we make the applause a little louder? Thank you.
Thank you, Olive. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Ekenem Isiche. I work for the Gates Foundation. As we're thinking through what sort of contribution we want to make to this gathering, we thought about what would be relevant to the times we live in, how we're thinking about Nigeria at the moment, and what sort of innovative solutions are we going to contribute to this gathering. I want to also first start off by just thanking all the organizers, the Central Bank of Nigeria, its leadership, every staff, all the heads of MDAs present, partners, organizers. Thank you for this, for putting this together, and all your contributions and support. It's an honor to join everyone here at IFIC 2024, and my goal is to see how can we discuss this transformative role of digital public infrastructure, also known as DPI. How many people know what DPI actually means? If you just raise up your hands. If not, ask your neighbor, what does DPI mean? Ask them, what does DPI mean? And so, and you can see the murmuring that went on in the crowd. So, what I'll try to do today is just to talk about what DPI means, what we are doing at the Gates Foundation, share some thoughts around what are some solutions we should be thinking about at the moment, and hopefully get your thoughts around what sort of action should we take moving forward. So, what is DPI? If the slide, they can show the slide on this, you can move on to the next slide and just flow with me. DPI actually means it's a collection of digital systems. It's more than a collection of digital systems. DPI actually means essential tools and services that facilitates open, inclusive, and secure digital interactions among individuals, organizations, and governments. It is just the essential infrastructure that transforms how people access and interact with economic and social opportunities. Around the world, DPI is impacting governments, businesses, and citizens by driving socio-economic growth and fostering financial inclusion. And how is this done? It's done in a couple of ways, and I'll share a couple. The first one in which how DPI is being deployed is through digital payments. The second one is through digital identity. And the third one is through data exchange. DPI connects people, data, and money to create a network across any country, any establishment. The truth is that countries that have actually adopted this thing called DPI are well positioned, and what they have done is they have created vibrant, competitive economies, and it builds trust between governments and citizens. It supports essential services, and it opens up new economic developments across things like finance, things like health, things like agriculture. Let me give you a picture. In parts of India, all you need is your ID to access a lot of services. Just your ID alone, you can access a lot of services. Think about some of the things we have to do, and we have to bring out multiple IDs, multiple documents, and multiple ways of verification. But just imagine having just an ID where you can access a lot of these services when it comes to health, agriculture, and finance. So what are we doing at the Bill & Melinda Gates Foundation? You see, our goal is just to see how do we encourage and equip low to medium income countries for them to adopt a safe and inclusive DPI that lines up with the Sustainable Development Goals. So we focus our DPI efforts on 3 foundational layers. The first one is on digital payments, the second one is on digital identity, and the third one is on data exchange. And we walk through different partners to see how we can deploy this solution. So our vision is that how do we create conditions where DPI can ensure a secure, accessible system that drives social change, that takes people from below poverty lines to above poverty lines, that stimulates economic growth. And what I plan to do next is now to share 4 ways in which how we're thinking about DPI. The first one is the power of DPI in inclusive growth. So what we have done is we have thought about how do we support digital financial systems and identity programs that have the most profound impacts on people's lives. Some of our thinking has been around mobile money and other digital financial services that have really saved people a lot of money, especially women, to safely secure their transactions. In some cases, we have been able to help women secure, engage in transactions without cash for the very first time. But the truth about it is that we can't do this alone. When you think about what's happening in the world globally and even in our country, you look at things that have to do with fragmentation, market failures, system barriers that have left a lot of people in, in a low poverty rate. In 2019, I don't know if you can move on, so I'll just show this. I talked about that example earlier on about what can happen in different places. But in 2019, McKinsey talked about the fact that if we have a robust ID coverage system, it will amount to 3 to 13% of the country's GDP in growth by 2030, just having a robust ID system alone. And they talked about the fact that post-COVID, it could even be much greater. The second thing is that with DPI, you can actually close or bridge the gap of about $5.2 trillion of credit for MSMEs. And it's estimated that 16 to 19 million MSMEs could gain access to capital through a well-established DPI system, which will fuel entrepreneurship and job creation. In India, there's a system, and if you look at that one, the graph on the left-hand side, in India, just because of their biometrics ID system called Aadhaar and their interoperable payment system called UPI, they were able to move adults to get them on board with digital bank accounts from 35% in 2011 to 78% in 10 years. And at the moment, it's currently 85%. And women account ownership increased even faster from 26% to 78%. The fact is that, according to the Bank of International Settlements, if India did not administer, implement, follow through with its DPI program, it would have taken them 47 years to reach this level of financial inclusion. The second one is in Andhra Pradesh in India, where digital payments and ID technologies have reduced leakages in rural employment by 40%. And it has also increased beneficiary earnings by 24%. The government savings were 9 times the amount it spent to implement the new system. Let me repeat that. The government saved 9 times the amount it spent to implement those systems. The third one is in Estonia, where they call it the X-Road platform, which makes up 99% of the public services. They made it online, they made it accessible. It reduced their tax filing times from 3 days to minutes. It also cut their registration time for businesses from 5 days to 3 hours. So basically, when you have a robust DPI system, you can reduce things like fraud, which can also contribute to 80% in terms of just the benefit to the system. What about Togo, which is something that we can maybe even relate to? What Togo did was they just used their election register, call it your INEC here, your election register, and their digital payment channels. And they expanded their social assistance program, almost like a welfare program, from 12,000 people to 1.8 million people. And they were able to reach 35% of the adults with welfare support. In Nigeria, we have, at the moment, I believe we have about 110 million people registered, which creates a solid foundation to do a lot of these things I've talked about. And on the formal banking system, it's helped out because we're able to connect name to bank accounts, and we're able to help out with the formal banking, formal inclusion system we have helped the formal financial inclusion rise to about 64%. We've also seen the fact that there have been mobile money, agents, and the networks have expanded to about over 1.8 million agents. So basically, DPI in Nigeria has the potential to bridge the gap for the unbanked, the unempowered, the underserved, and women to just gain greater financial autonomy and economic resilience. The second point I wanted to make was around DPI's impact on women and the vulnerable population. The fact is that when we empower women and vulnerable groups and you give them a digital identity, it leads to financial independence. It leads to a broader range of accessible services, especially financial services. It leads to greater economic security and resilience. With DPI, women can build financial histories, you can access your credits, and you can leverage savings to improve on your households. There's a program called the Nigeria for Women Project, and I ask that as you go back and as you dialogue with different state governments and institutions, ask them if they're part of the Nigeria for Women Project. What the Nigeria for Women Project has done, in one of the states we're working in, it has connected 450,000 women to financial services. For these women, what DPI has done is that it's opened the door to business ownership, credits, and the ability to save for future needs. Similarly, the expansion of agent banking and mobile money services has also provided financial tools to these rural communities that had in the past had limited or informal financial services. The third thing I want to talk about is why this is also critical, which is the risks. On the cybersecurity and the regulatory level, DPI has, even though it has great benefits, it also introduces new risks. Cybersecurity, data protection, regulatory safeguards, these are essential pillars to making sure that you have a strong DPI system. Without this system, what you have is digital systems that have exposed individuals to cyber threats, privacy breaches, financial losses. It erodes public trust and also hinders DPI adoption. So what we are advocating for to the CBN and some of the other regulatory agencies is have a robust regulatory framework that promotes cybersecurity standards, data privacy, and a culture of digital trust. So for this DPI to be inclusive, the systems have to be resilient. The governance standards have to be accountable. Regulatory and ethical standards are essential. So strengthening cybersecurity and data privacy, once again, is critical to making sure that you have a resilient system. My very last point is the fact that when you think about when you look ahead to a DPI future, especially in the times we live in, we ask the question, what should Nigeria do? If you implement a strong DPI system, you would, you build a system that is inclusive, you build a system that's equitable and designed to meet the present needs of the citizens of Nigeria and other countries, since this is an international conference and other countries present. And how are we going to do this? We have to engage the voices of women, rural communities, and the financially excluded folks in developing this system. The second thing is that we must invest in digital literacy. We must bridge the digital divide, especially in underserved areas. The third thing is that we have to foster a stronger collaboration between the public and private sector. The governments cannot do it alone. They do need the private sector to be more involved in what they're doing. But if we choose not to implement a strong digital public infrastructure system, you will have monopolies that dominate the digital landscape. They will charge high fees and they will limit competition, which stifles innovation and also restricts data access. The second is that if we do absolutely nothing, you find out that weak data governance would expose citizens to fraud, cyber attacks, and other illicit activities, which will now undermine trust in what's in the current system. The third is that if you don't design it inclusively, the digital platforms will inadvertently reinforce inequalities. It will exclude women, informal workers, and the marginalized communities. The truth is that, and the fact is, the path to impactful DPI is going to require integrated secure payments. It's going to require reliable digital identities. It's also going to require interoperable data exchange systems. My plea and ask is that let us try and commit to building a secure, inclusive, and empowering DPI system. You know, if we all work together, we can actually create a world where nobody is left behind. And everyone can thrive, even in the economy that we live in. The opportunity before us is a lot, but by working together, we can actually build a strong DPI system that serves all people, that fosters resilience, and paves the way for a future of shared prosperity. Thank you, and these are my contributions.
Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together. Thank you very much, Mr. Eseche. Thank you. Splendid. What a way to set the tone for the breakout sessions.
All right, thank you very much once again. Now, speaking about the breakout session, to mention to our virtual audience, a number of us have gotten links, and these links from the point of registration already direct you to where the breakout sessions will be happening. My co-host had mentioned where these rooms will be taking place earlier. We're going to reiterate them again, but just to quickly run through what the rooms are, where the rooms are, and who the speakers are. We have breakout 1 happening here, and it will be unlocking insights for inclusive finance and economic development. And the speakers at the breakout session would be Ms. Elizabeth Gatai, Director, Women World Banking, Dr. Oluwatomi Eromesele, General Manager, Enhancing Financial Innovation and Access, EFNA. I think we took a number of their reports yesterday. Ms. Ebehije Momo, CEO, Afrigo, Ms. Fisayo Alayonde, Executive Secretary and CEO, Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. And this session will be moderated by Dr. Ladi Balakefi, the Acting Director, Monetary Policy, Central Bank of Nigeria.
And breakout 2 on emerging issues in financial literacy and consumer protection, moderated by Hawawu Gambo of the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, as Mrs. Cynthia Omosa, Mr. Niyi Awosope, Toluwalokbe, and Mr. Usoro as panelists. And the venue for that breakout is the main hall overflow. It's all set. I have checked it out.
All right. We still have one more panelist for the breakout too, who's Mr. Ajibade Laulu Ajibade, who's the chairperson committee of e-banking industry heads for Wema Bank PLC. But moving on to breakout 3, advancing the financial inclusion of vulnerable segments. And this session will be moderated by Ms. Chinasa Collins Ogbo, Head Financial Inclusion for All, EFNA. And we also have on the panel Dr. Nuruddin Zaro, Technical Advisor on Economic and Financial Inclusion, Office of the Vice President, Dr. Joy Shoaibu, Country Director, Site Savers Nigeria, Husseini Abdu, PhD, Nigeria Country Director, Care International, Dr. Uchenna Ibokwe, Executive Director, Solina Care for International Development and Research.
And breakout session 4, it's empowering Nigeria's inclusive growth through MSMEs. Mr. Hamman Kwaji John, the Acting Director, Development Finance Department, and the CBN will be moderator. Mr. Temitola Adekunle Johnson, the SSAP on job creation and MSMEs is a panelist. So is Mrs. Nneka Oyelibe, CEO Fidelity Bank PLC, as well as Ms. Anna Gincheman, the CEO Consumer Centrics.
All right, yes, and one more, Mr. Joseph Atta, the Vice Chairman, Governing Council, MSME Forum. These are the panels, the breakout sessions, and just to also mention that tea will be served in each breakout session right after your breakout session.
Olive, we also need to say, if you are here in the hall and you have not indicated any of the segments to go, please feel free. It is very flexible. You might also have pre-registered and indicated to be in breakout 1, but perhaps because of the lineup of panelists on breakout 2, you wish to, is it port or decamp now? You will be at liberty to so do. It is very flexible. The most important thing is that you are a part of the conversation, you enrich the discussions, and we leave here better than we have come in.
All right, just before you share with us where the breakout sessions will be happening, to once again reiterate that our virtual audience, we are definitely hoping that you're carried along. The links to the different breakout sessions will be in your emails, so please click on the link and it will take you to the different breakout rooms. And right after the breakout session and the tea break, please, we'd like to ask, once you pick up your tea after your session, as quickly as possible, return back to the hall so that we can continue with the conversations. We do have awards and recognitions to give today, and we want to make sure everything goes smoothly and quickly. And to take us through the venues of where this will be happening, main hall, breakout session 1.
Yes, spillover breakout session 2, main hall overflow. Breakout 3 is room 2A, second floor, and the breakout 4 is room 2B, second floor as well.
And the breakout sessions are officially open.
The likes of the several professors and the dignitaries, you are at liberty to be special envoys to the CEOs, special envoys to any of the breakout sessions. I'm sure they would benefit a lot from your insights. Thank you very much. I will also be going around and say, you did not mention all that we need to be back here. It's an hour's time. Please, all the moderators should note that we are reconvening for plenary in an hour's time exactly. The timer is going to be here, so once we call for a return back, we will reconvene. All of the special guests, you are ambassadors and envoys to any of the breakout rooms. The professor board member, the professor former CBN governor, the CEO of SEC, please just be at liberty to visit any of the breakout rooms. You are mentors and advisors and envoys there, so that you witness proceedings yourself and you can enrich the conversations. Thank you very much. Yes, MB.
Moderators and hosts, Mohammed and Olive. And yes, indeed, the breakout sessions start now. Good morning. You're seeing us for the first time, Mebaka?
Yeah, my name is Mebaka, and we've been moderating the virtual sessions. So we'll just guide you know the different breakout sessions. We'll just reiterate them for each note. I'm here with Oluwaseun.
That's right, that's right. All right, so we've had Mohammed and Olive do an exhaustive sort of exposition on what the breakout sessions will be. We just want to remind you as you make your way, breakout 1, unlocking insights for inclusive finance and economic development. And that is happening in what room, Mebaka? Do you have that? All right, so that's happening in the main hall, actually. All right, the spillover for breakout session 2. I believe you know where the spillover room is. That is for emerging issues in financial literacy and consumer protection. All right, that's happening in the spillover hall. Now for breakout session 3, upstairs room 2A, and that's for advancing the financial inclusion of vulnerable segments. All right, and then for breakout session 4, powering Nigeria's inclusive growth through MSMEs, that's upstairs room 2B. If you're watching online, Mebaka was saying earlier that you have been sent emails and you can join those different breakout sessions virtually as you choose.
Absolutely. So if you check your mails were sent out yesterday evening, and they had the links to join all the breakout sessions. So look for the one of your choice and feel free to join. But just to reiterate again, the main hall would host breakout session 1. The spillover will host breakout session 2. Upstairs, room 2A would host breakout session 3. Upstairs, room 2B would hold the 4th breakout session. Let me just go over again. The main hall is where we'll have breakout session 1. The spillover will have breakout session 2. Upstairs, room 2A, you have breakout session 3. Upstairs, room 2B, you have breakout session 4. For our virtual audience, please just check your mails. You have the links for all the 4 breakout sessions. So just click the link to join within the next couple of minutes.
All right, and in the interest of time, please, immediately after the breakout sessions, please come back to the main hall as the plenary, the next plenary, plenary 8, will follow right after the breakout sessions. All right, so we're looking forward to that.
And just to add that, after the plenary, we'll be having the award session. Yes. I mean, it'll be time to celebrate organizations who have put in a lot of work within the last 1 year to advance financial inclusion. Yes, lots of innovation and all around that space. So it'll be time to celebrate them, to cheer them up as they get their awards, and to inspire other organizations to work hard within the next 2 years. So maybe they'll be getting the award in 2026.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So congratulations in advance to our champions of inclusion. All right, so we're going to allow those who are doing the breakout in the main hall to start right now, and we'll see you after the breakout sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our duo of anchors there in the studio. There is an urgent announcement. Please, with apologies, we have got a switch. So, and I know somebody is going over there. The group on emerging issues in financial literacy and consumer protection, breakout room 2, Hawau Gambo's group. Please, you have been switched now to take room 2A, second floor upstairs. With the greatest apologies, the group now advancing the financial inclusion of vulnerable segments on second floor have got to occupy that. I mean, it's absurd that we're speaking of vulnerable groups and we're placing them in the position where they can't even access. Nothing illustrates the situation more than that. And I've just quickly had to apologize to them. So the vulnerable segments are going to be occupying that overflow, main hall overflow, and the group there, emerging issues in financial literacy and consumer protection, will have a swap, will now occupy the room on the second floor. Please, apologies to all the members who belong to that category, the vulnerable segments. This was an inadvertent oversight that has now been corrected. And Sophie is there. Please, let's lead the team there already settled and tell them that there is now a switch. Let that swap. Breakout room 4 is room 2B. Room 2B, second floor, sir. Okay, all right. So, thank you very much. For the those in the main hall, unlocking insights for inclusive finance and economic development, I will be inviting the moderator, Dr. Ladi Balakefi, MNI, Acting Director, Monetary Policy Department, Central Bank of Nigeria, to please make her way. Mrs. Momo Wright Ebehiji, she's a panelist. If you are here, please do also make your way. Miss Feisayo Alayande, Executive Secretary, CEO, Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. She is here. Dr. Oluwatomi Eromesele from EFINA. Please do come here. Miss Angela Wambugu, Director Advisory Services, Africa Women's World Banking. Please, could we also have, please technical, can you also ensure that in each of those breakout rooms, they have the microphones they need. You are doing that. Thank you very much. But please, very important, ensure that there has been a swap between the emerging issues in financial literacy and consumer protection. They will need to move to room 2A, while advancing the financial inclusion of vulnerable segment will now come to room 2B. Moderator, you have the microphone, I think. Please, very important. I've been also, just a second, please, Admo. All of those who went to the different breakout rooms, I hope they did not leave their personal belongings behind. Please, it's a free event. We had unpleasant reports yesterday. We do not want to have a repeat. So please, all of those at the different breakout rooms should be mindful of their personal belongings and ensure that they go with it there. I'd like to welcome the DG Operations, Central Bank of Nigeria, Madam. Ms. M. Osoro, thank you very much. Thank you for moderating the panel yesterday. Thank you for being here all through. We are in the breakout sessions. I'm sure at some point you also will go around to have a feel of it as a mentor, advisor, and an envoy of financial inclusion here. But for now, over to you, Madam Moderator here. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, this is a panel of ladies. This is the only panel that is 100% female. There was a WhatsApp message I saw that went viral last week that women must have 8,000 words a day. And somebody was advising husbands that if your wife starts nagging you, don't feel offended. It's because she must have her 8,000 words. So multiply 8,000 words times 5. So be ready for a charged session this morning. Thank you. So it's interesting that women are the group that are most vulnerable in terms of inclusion. So the topic we'll be discussing this morning is unlocking insights for inclusive finance and economic development for the 2024 Financial Inclusion Conference. As a way of a background, inclusive finance focuses on access to affordable financial services for the most disadvantaged segments of the society across all demographics. Over time, inclusive finance has gained relevance due to its huge contribution to economic development. Thus, promoting the usage of financial services among various demographics was one of the actionable conclusions in the 2015 United Nations Global Sustainable Development Report. Inclusive finance aids inclusive growth and sustainable development because it emphasizes equitable distribution of financial services and aids the participation of low-income individuals in productive and economic activities. Currently, the state of play of financial inclusion in Nigeria, we have major milestones which includes financial inclusion, level of financial inclusion from 65% in the preceding year to 67% in 2023. Based on the figures, the financial inclusion rate is 28% below the 95% target of financial inclusion rate by end of 2024. We've had several financial inclusion strategies, one in 2018, another one in 2020, and another one at the end of 2024, supposed to come up. So what we would expect from this panel today is for you to tell us in your respective, because you're all experts in different categories, from the government, from the private sector, from also the global perspective. So we would like you to tell us what actually is the state of play of financial inclusion in Nigeria currently, the challenges we're facing, and also how to address it. So this is how I would like you to take your responses, because the essence of this gathering is for the Central Bank of Nigeria and other stakeholders to have a way forward on how to fill that 28% gap that is limiting us. So I'll start with you. Please, can you please introduce yourselves before you, because I haven't done the introduction, so I'd like you to introduce yourself. So I'll start with you, and the question is, what are your thoughts on the current state of financial inclusion in Nigeria, and how does this impact efforts to grow the economy into a $1 trillion economy, which is where the president wants to take the economy to? Please, we should go straight to the point and be brief as much as possible while delivering. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'd like to say good morning to everyone here and also stand on existing protocol. My name is Ebehije Momo. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Afrigo. Afrigo, as you know, is a subsidiary of NIPS. I started my journey in banking several years ago. I've had over 30 years. Before I joined as the CEO of Afrigo, I was the head of MasterCard West Africa. And before then, a couple of years, 27 years to be precise, in the banking industry. So very grounded in finance and also very excited about financial inclusion. And at this level, I want to see what I can give back to my country. Okay, so first of all, the state of financial inclusion, I would say that it's a mix. You know, we've seen significant progress. You started by saying the growth that we have seen in the financial inclusion, even between 2020 and 2023. Even the last speaker talked about it, moving from 50 to 63 is significant. Then when we look at the growth that we have seen in fintech space, mobile money, we've seen significant growth along the area, which has helped really drive financial inclusion, because it has given birth to our ability to have a wider access, because financial inclusion is about financial access. But having said that, there are a lot of challenges, and I think in the various engagement we've had before now in financial inclusion is about the challenges that we have. Education, you know, how do we do consumer education? How do we ensure that within the financial ecosystem, the right people are getting there? My thought is this: I think we are doing a lot of things that was the right direction. Even the ambition of central bank for us to hit 94% is the right direction, because that means there's a goal. There's something that we are looking at to get there. But the things that we now need to do is, how then do we focus? And I believe that's what we're going to be discussing today, on ensuring that some of the things that have been outlined we are actually executing. Because a lot of things are moving in the right direction, but how do we ensure that we focus right in? And then how do we address challenges? Sometimes we are doing a lot of things, but are they the right solutions to solve the issue that we have? So my thought would be great initiative by the government, whether it's even the central bank framework when it comes to financial inclusion, they are all there. Now we now need to execute, put our money where our mouth is. I believe that's where we are. So on that level, I'd say addressing the challenges that we have today during this conversation, and then also sharing some of the examples that are taking us to the right direction, and how can we, you know, leverage and grow those things that we are seeing will bring us to the right state that we want financial inclusion to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll now call on World Bank, World Banking for Women. Yes, 1 minute, please. introduce yourself, your name. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the Central Bank of Nigeria and all the organizers of this event for giving us this opportunity to contribute to this dialogue on financial inclusion, advancing financial inclusion in Nigeria. So at Women's World Banking, we're a 45-year-old organization that it's a global nonprofit that works to promote women financial inclusion as a pathway to women's economic empowerment, because we care about their empowerment, their prosperity of themselves, their families, and their communities. And we believe that that contributes strongly to economic growth. We do this through 3 pillars. One is on advisory services with policymakers and with financial service providers. So we work with policymakers to design inclusive policies and plan how those are going to be implemented. We work with financial service providers to design inclusive solutions using our women-centered design approach. And we also have an investment arm that invests in early stage financial service entities that are keen on advancing women financial inclusion. We have a local team here, and we have had the opportunity to work with Central Bank of Nigeria in the past, say, over 7 to 8 years. We've worked with we've worked with the Central Bank. We have a number of people who have attended our leadership and development program for regulators, where they come back with a policy issue that they need to address. We have also worked with the Central Bank on creating the framework for advancing women financial inclusion, the 4FIN, which you will see on the WFID website. And then we've also worked with FSPs in trying to get them to create, to look at their products and how they can be more accessible to women. In terms of the state of financial inclusion and its connection to economic growth, I would like to echo what my colleague has said. It's commendable in terms of where we have moved to at now, where we are at 64% financial access. But there's still opportunity, I think, to improve on the usage and especially also on the quality and the impact of these financial services. But I also like the ambitious target of getting to 95%. And we know that we've gotten here because of the advancement on the digital technologies, so through mobile banking and agency banking, which is commendable, but there's still a lot to do to get to the 95%. On connection to economic growth, I'd like to say that we should not be looking at financial inclusion as a CSR activity. We should not be looking at it as a fad, because it's important in economic growth, and particularly in Nigeria, where 80% of the economy is actually within the informal sector. So if we do not include the informal sector, which constitutes 80% of our economy, then there's a challenge there with regard to economic growth. But what if we were to give more credit to the MSMEs? Then we're going to see businesses growing. We're going to see increased revenues for these businesses. We're going to see greater employment, and that contributes to economic growth of the country.
Thank you.
If we were to include farmers, provide financial services to farmers, they increase their productivity, they have resilience against climate shocks, they grow, then we reduce our imports for food, we can export food, and we grow our economy that way.
Okay,
So,
Angela, I would like you to hold it there. So my theory of 8,000 words, as you can all see, is there, but I wouldn't want you to finish your 8,000 words in round one. Because hold on to the informal sector issue, because I'll come back to you on that. I'd like Dr. Oluwatomi, please, of IFINA, to please, your general thoughts in 1 minute, please. You don't have to use your 8,000 words now. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Kudos to the CBN and all our partners for putting this together. Since I have 1 minute, I would just say, we've all said, I'll ride on what has been said already, because we've talked about the progress that has been made, but also the gaps that exist. For us, we believe that the major gap that we see today is around access. So we've said that around 1/3 of our adult population still remain excluded from formal financial services. And we know that what that means is that it limits their potential to contribute to the economic development or even benefit from that. So 1/3 of adults are not able to contribute to the 1 trillion economy that we just talked about. The other thing is that, yes, we say today that 64% of adults, Nigerians, are formally included. Just 6% of them can borrow or access credit, right? Less than 10% have insurance or pension. And we know that these are financial solutions that actually help people to get the value out of financial services. So payments is good, but then people need to be able to borrow, use credit productively. People need to be able to insure themselves so that they are resilient against shocks. People need to be able to save for long-term savings. That's when they are able to derive value from financial services. So I think that's the urge that we're giving to stakeholders at this time, to say that we need to increase usage of financial services. And the second thing we also advocate for, I think Ekanem spoke to it earlier on, is digital financial services. I'll just give an example just to sum it up. When I got into GSS 1 in 1996, the community where I schooled, that's Federal Government College where I schooled in, had a UBA bank and also had an agricultural cooperative in that community. I went back there last year when my dad passed, and there's no bank in that community anymore. So they're left with cooperatives. At some point, they put together a microfinance bank, put together with their own resources. So we know that there's capital requirement for that. For the microfinance bank, the cost of getting funds is high. So the rates at which they receive credit at this point is high. So the point I'm trying to make is that when we talk about quality of financial services and digital financial services, we also need to be mindful about the quality of that. Because now, my mom, for example, uses that microfinance bank, and when I want to send her money, oftentimes it wouldn't go through because the microfinance bank won't come up. I have to send money to the Zenith bank account of the microfinance bank, and they tell her whether they've seen it or not. So we say we're going digital, we're extending agents to rural communities, but those agents don't have what it takes to extend a full range of solutions that will help people improve their livelihoods. So my ask is, with all the progress that we've made with digital financial services driving access, we need to empower the infrastructure that we currently have built, right, with agents and mobile money, empower those solutions and that infrastructure so that they can deliver a range of services, and people don't just have to rely on payments or cash in, cash out, but they can get more from financial services. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So what I take from you is digital. There's a lot of applaud for digital financial services, but your statement now has shown that even that there are challenges, so which we need to strengthen. I hope the Secretariat is taking note of all this, because that is essentially why we are here. Thank you. And last but not the least, I will call on Feisayo to give us the government perspectives. Your thoughts quickly in 1 minute, please.
You're giving everyone more than 1 minute. Good morning, everyone. My name is Feisayo Alayande. I would like to start on all existing protocols, but thank you, Central Bank Bankers Committee, for organizing this event and inviting me on this panel. I'm currently the Acting Executive Secretary for Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. The E is for employment, not education, not environment. I like to make that clear. I used to work in a investment bank, and I used to work at an inclusive finance bank, and this message has always been clear from the onset in terms of financial inclusion not being only the government's responsibility, but being everyone's responsibility. And since I started working for government in January this year, it's been very clear why it's everyone's responsibility. But in terms of introduction, Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, we have the mandate to create job opportunities in Lagos State, and that's basically saying no man, no woman is left behind. Everyone has the right to access capital, access to finance, and we will do that by the grace of God. We deliver on this mandate through 5 core programs, and we deliver on this through partnerships, very strong on public and private partnerships. I think one of the keynote speakers highlighted this, that collaboration is key, and that's the message for everyone in this room if there's one thing you're going to leave with. So our first program is access to capital, and we give loans, single-digit loans, 9%. So I heard one of the ladies mention affordable finance. That's critical in terms of drawing on the financial inclusion agenda. So right now we give loans from 50,000 naira to 5 million naira at 9%. And we have a repayment rate of 92%. And that's already starting to get you thinking about financial inclusion, because when the fund started, we had a repayment rate of about 60, sometimes 50. But we're proud to say that 90% of our beneficiaries who take a loan from us understand why they're taking the loan, are able to use that loan over a year or 6 months or 18 months, but they're able to pay back. And I think that's something we must commend ourselves for. The second program is what we call business support, and we'd say supporting the MSME or the entrepreneurship route is very critical, but access to finance is not only it, right? There are other sectors that make a wholesome entrepreneur. And that's looking at capacity building, mentorship, accurate bookkeeping, access to market. All of these factors contribute to including every single Lagosian, and that's what our business support program does. The third one is employability. Not everyone is cut out for entrepreneurship, so we do recognize that. But there are members of our society, the vulnerable, the youth, the women, who need to realize that you can work for somebody, but you need to make sure you get a decent job. You need to make sure that job is sustainable. What skills do you need to have? How do you write your CV? All of these fall under employability, and we call on partnerships, we call on individuals here that want to work with Lagos State government to come with us to make that difference. The fourth program is Lagos Innovates, and when my co-panel spoke about technology, I smiled, because guess what? FinTech is one aspect. There's so many aspects to technology that brings about financial inclusion. Agri-tech is an important one, health tech, edutech, and we see so many ideas that come about, but how do we make sure those ideas don't just die on the table? That's where we come in, right? So we serve as a conduit between who we call the founders, so the startup economic system, and the funders. And we say to them, this is a brilliant idea. We incubate them for 8 weeks. We train them up to deliver a pitch, and then we present them to investors. So we serve as that conduit on the tech arm. And the fifth one is what we call job hubs, and we say that access to infrastructure should not be limiting for any entrepreneur. We can cluster you together, 10 of you, 20 of you, give you access to a space, and you pay a fee on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis to ensure you can do business there. All of these programs are what we call, or what we use to intervene to make sure that no one is left behind. And the word financial inclusion, I think it's something that, I'm sorry, has been used over and over again. I call it, honestly, still financial inclusion, but wholesome financial inclusion. Beyond finance, what do we need to make sure that individual can walk into this room and has a seat at the table? Every individual has a right to good education, good health, access to technology, and they can actually create a livelihood that's sustainable for their family. So that's what we do at LSCTF, and my name is Feisha Alayande. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You have done very well. You mentioned 5 areas where Lagos State is focused on. And it's very interesting. There are people here that have come here to see where they can plug in to financial inclusion. And I hope they're taking clear notes. Because sometimes a lot of people feel they have to come to the central bank to get funding. But there are so many areas of financial inclusion that you can actually just situate yourself, to ensure that you make impact in that space. So thank you very much for that. But I must tell you that you have used up your 8,000 words. So I'll now go to specific questions for each one of you. And I'll start with Angela. So you talked about the informal sector. So in Nigeria, I believe the informal sector is one of the challenges that we have as for financial inclusion, because trying to integrate the people in the informal sector into the formal sector is a big challenge. And I wrote on it when I was in the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. I did a thesis on it, and I suggested that we can do mobile registration, like mobile clinics. Just as the vehicle is going in the market, you just randomly register people that are carrying trays on their head, selling hawkers, or people that have, I went to some markets in Abuja, and I interviewed people with small stalls and tables in the market. How much is your startup capital? And they would tell me it's 30,000 naira, 50,000 naira, you know? So people like that, we could easily register them. So not to deviate, I would like you to please tell us the challenges hindering financial inclusion in Nigeria, particularly among the excluded segments. So, but I would like you, because there is a secretariat taking notes, and there are people here that have come to listen to us so that they will know where they can fit in. So instead of us giving a long story about what to do, if you can just go straight to the point, in bullets, do A, B, C, and I would really appreciate that. So I'm giving you 1 minute, and I pray that you will stick to that 1 minute. Thank you.
I will try my best. Okay. So when we talk about excluded segments, I know first of all we say I've had women, youth, northern Nigerians yesterday. But for us, we look, even when we're looking at women, we don't look at them as just a distinct segment. We look at women across all segments, the women in business, women in agri, displaced women, young women. And then when we look at the challenges, we look at them in 3 levels. And like I said, in the case of Nigeria, given that 80% of the economy operates in the informal sector, it's really important to see how to include this and overcome the challenges that we have. So we look at challenges in 3 ways: the ecosystem, what is preventing the broader ecosystem, what is preventing inclusive finance at that level. So would say that one, there's an issue about maybe regulations and the policies that are there, and there's opportunity to look at how do we ease the restrictions, especially for those who want to go, let's say, to the last mile, those who already have the infrastructure to go to the last mile. How can we ease the restrictions that we have on the licensing of such entities? And also, how can we create incentives for those that already have the licenses, like those who are already operating agency banking, if it is banks or fintechs? But how do we incentivize them to just move from the urban center and get into the rural areas? So that's, you know, those are some of the things that could be done to address that. When it comes to, let's say, ID systems, I know there's a lot of work that's happening around establishing a national ID, a universal national ID. But then how can we accelerate that? And how do we make it easy for the people to do that, to acquire that? I mean, I listened the other day, a friend of mine was telling me they wanted to pay their house help and send the money, but they could not because they did not have the NIN registration. And it was difficult. She has tried to register for NIN for so many months. And so what my friend ended up doing is actually open another account in her name, but dedicate it to her house help, and she'll be paying her through that. So I think we need to move from beyond looking at setting up the policies and the frameworks, but how do we make them work for the people? If there are challenges, let's say, at the entities, let's say at the local level, local government level, where people are struggling to get these registrations. What are we doing to facilitate that? Let's just not leave the problem to the citizen themselves, but let's go the extra mile beyond having the policy in place, but actually seeing to it that it's working for the people. The third, that's the first area on the broader ecosystem. On the financial service providers bit, when I'll talk about women, given that I'm from Women's World Banking. We have seen that the financial service providers have an intent. They have a desire and an intent to serve women, but sometimes they struggle with the idea of, there's no business case to serve these low-income women. But the FSPs themselves have a lot of data which they have not analyzed deeply to see the opportunities therein and then make decisions based on what they see in the data. So we have worked with some financial service providers analyzing, let's say, their credit data, and we have seen that women are better repairs, and that was mentioned yesterday. But when we look at access to credit, they have less access to credit. So then what do we need to do to address that problem for financial service providers? Why is it that they have less access to credit, yet they are better repairs? Your non-performing loan portfolio would reduce, the average would reduce if you included more women. So using data for decision making would be very important, and then thinking of what are the issues. Some of the barriers are the requirements for physical collateral for women, and we know that they may not have title deeds registered in their names or motor vehicle logbooks. Those are barriers specific to women. So how do we create our credit products in a way that we remove those barriers? And that's where digital credit comes in.
So that's three? You said three segments. So you mentioned financial service providers, you mentioned fiscal barriers to women. What was the first one?
I mentioned the broader ecosystem, which includes policies and regulatory frameworks that we put in place.
Policies and regulatory.
And then for financial service providers, and then for the women themselves, there are challenges therein for the women
like
themselves.
Lack of...
for example, we even saw in the data yesterday, lower literacy levels for the women as compared to men. But what then can we do? What are we doing about that? Even as we push digital technologies, we know there's low digital literacy, there's lack of trust, by the women themselves. But what can we do then to address those issues? So what we do with the institutions is promote digital and financial capabilities, integrating that into your processes. So
can I ask how you do that? Because that's very important. How do you promote digital literacy?
How do we promote?
Yes.
Yeah. So, so when working through our women-centered design process for developing products with financial service providers, we integrate. If, let's say, we are talking about you want to push out a digital solution to the market, we advocate and we say we need to integrate training for the target market.
Okay, so that will come under financial literacy, right?
That would come under financial literacy. They are building their capabilities.
Sorry, just one question. Do you have a wide spread of branches all over?
Sorry? Oh, no. We don't have a bank ourselves. We partner with financial service providers.
You partner with financial services.
We partner with financial service providers.
Sorry, I'll stop you there. We'll come back to you later.
Yes.
So that we can thank you very much for that insight, that you provide financial services, and you did mention fiscal barriers to women, and also regulation. You talked about regulation, right? So that would bring the likes of the Central Bank of Nigeria, NDIC, SEC into that space for them to take note. Thank you very much. We'll come back to you later. For now, I think, I'll go back to AB Ehije to please answer this question. How can we ensure the reliability and safety of financial transactions to build trust informal financial services. She just mentioned now that they do some training with financial service providers, right? So, because a lot of citizens in Nigeria are not literate enough to understand digital finance. So I'd like you to please give us your own perspective on that, and please very direct to the point because we are running out of time.
Okay, thank you so much. Because we're running out of time, let me just last year, Africa was launched by the Central Bank of Nigeria, and this is the National Domestic Card Scheme, just in case you're wondering what is Africa. And one of the reasons, and I think we haven't talked about that challenge itself, is the affordability of digital finance itself. How it is expensive today, even if you're trying to bring people into the financial ecosystem. There are two things that I want to really address in this about specific thing, exactly what Africa have done within those areas. Because one of the aim of launching a national domestic card scheme was to grow and ensure we improve financial inclusion. And I'm very excited that it's working, and therefore would like to share that. You know, we talked about finance, and I was really excited when you talked about lending and the cost of lending. Let me tell you the innovation that we have done just recently that is really mind-blowing. Today, and we are the first globally, so today when you use a card, any card in the market, to go to the small SMEs that you have on the roadmap, they have their POS and what have you, it takes about T+1, sometimes 2, or sometimes something happens, it doesn't get to them. What did we do? We recognized that in Nigeria that was an issue. So we launched what we call the instant settlement when you use an Afrigo card in any POS terminal with the merchants. Now, when we are talking about driving the economy, the MSMEs are the ones that are the merchants. They are the ones that are in the market. That's why when you go to, and remember, financial inclusion is about, the real enemy is the cash, because people are comfortable with cash, and that's why we continue to see that we can bring them into the financial ecosystem. So with that singular solution that we have done at Afrigo, when you use our card today, the merchant gets instant settlement. It means that there's a credit, boom, on the merchant's account. What does that mean for a market woman whose total revenue in a day is probably 100,000 or 500,000? It means the person can go back, and then the cost of capital is reduced, because we talked about that. This is some of the things we need to do in our market if we are solving for financial inclusion. And that's where the issue of trust comes in. I'm not sure I'm going to get this money. How will I know? We solved that. The second thing we did recently, which is why collaboration is very important, and that's why I mentioned fintechs. Working and collaborating with the fintech Touch and Pay, which is a very known fintech in Lagos State. They are currently responsible for the card that you use in transportation. We are going to revolutionize transportation. What did we do? We recognize that in our market, the ability to have an offline capability is very important. The internets don't work all the time. When you are entering that bus, you are not sure that when you have the card, you are able to, make the payment. We have partnered with them in such a way that today, with our cards, on any BRT bus, whether it's in the land, on the waters, or in the rail, you can tap that card and you will get credit immediately, giving you an option of offline as well as online. So what that does is that we are able to bring more people. The Molue and the Danfo drivers and the bus driver will be excited about using that solution, which is why financial inclusion, beyond all of the things that we have done, we should be careful about the cost, the affordability of it, and then solutions that we bring in that will enable the underserved, because they're all part of it, be able to participate, and then trust then comes in. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. You talked about affordability of digital finance. You talked about collaboration and also trust. Okay. So, yes, that trust is very important, because with the Naira redesign, I hope you know that this segment of people that we really want to include became distrustful of the financial system. And we are all going to be part of the team that will build that trust going forward. That trust building shouldn't be left to the central bank alone. Thank you. And I'll quickly bring in Dr. Olua Tomi. So she mentioned data. So I'll take up from what she said about data and collaboration. So can you please quickly tell us what role does data play in generating actionable solutions to drive improved access to finance for priority demographics? Please, I want you to be very practical, because when you tell us a lot of things around it, we'll miss the point. So, and that goes for all of us. Let's go straight to the point. That's what will resonate and remain in the minds of our listeners. Yes.
All right, thank you. With regards to data, I think I work with EFINA, and one of the things that we're known for is for producing robust data around financial inclusion. Before you can use data for actionable solutions, you first need to be able to get the right data around people's financial needs, what they are using to meet their financial needs, or what they want to use. So EFINA, every 2 years, we conduct the Access to Financial Services in Nigeria survey, which was referenced yesterday. And that's how we do that. So the first thing is that we need to first get the right data, make sure we're collecting the right information, because that's what tells us who is excluded, what's the level of exclusion, and also what are their preferences, and how can we develop solutions to meet those needs. So that's the first thing, is that we need the right data. The second thing, I think particularly for where we are with our ecosystem today, is that we need to be able to use data for personalized solutions. So for example, I'm a mother of two. I want, you have my financial transactions, and you can tell that I have a financial need around paying for school fees, and you can help me plan towards that. So we need data for that kind of personalized solutions. You also have maybe someone who has an ill mother, or and you can help them figure out how they can use insurance to help them deal with that solution. So I think we can also leverage data for personalized offering, because again, it's not a one-size-fits-all. And that is one of the issues that we have with excluded groups, the fact that they say what's in the market does not work for me. And when you see our A2F data, you ask people what will encourage you to use solutions. They talk about when I understand it, or when it suits my needs. So one of the things I think Angela was speaking about is how do we ensure that solutions are suitable, and that goes back to the quality issue as well. The third area, I think, with regards to data, is the triangulation of data. A2F is just a demand-side survey. We also now have supply-side information, and we launched the Women's Financial Inclusion Dashboard yesterday, which gives us clear information, and we can look into specific segments of the population and say, for women, what are their needs, what are their current transactions. We can do the same thing for youth. So that triangulation can help us. The last thing I want to say around data is that data is not just about numbers. So the number is great, but I think that for a long time, the reason why we are almost getting laid back with regards to financial inclusion is that we've reduced this to a statistic. And one of the things we've done recently in EFINA is to try to put a human face to that, to humanize that, and to say, who are these people? And last year we said that, financial exclusion has a woman face, right? It's more women that are excluded. Okay. So I think the angle that we're trying to add to this is, let's not just see it as a statistic, but let's also try to add the context to it and the human angle that we need to add to that.
Thank you very much. You've talked about usage for data for personalized solutions and the triangulation of data. So we're wrapping up now because we're going to take one or two questions. And before we wrap up, I'm going to give you the opportunity to state our parting shots. And I'll start with the Lagos State. I'll start with Feishayo. Yeah. You have already told us the 5 things that Lagos State government is doing, which is great, and I hope other subnationals will also emulate this. So what I'd like you to quickly state in bullet form, what policy reforms and regulatory frameworks are required to accelerate financial inclusion.
Thank you for that.
So, sorry, you are Lagos State, you've done your 5 points. Where do you think regulators should come in to strengthen what you as Lagos State have been doing? And how can the goal of Lagos State fit into the broader economic picture?
Yeah, thank you.
And please don't use up your 8,000 words, because you may have questions.
That's noted. I think quite simple. It's making sure that every regulation and policy out there creates an enabling environment. And that's really what the government is trying to do, and will continue to do that. And to create that enabling environment, it means that we ensure that every MSME has the right access to all of the things we discussed. But ultimately, it doesn't actually stop there, because we need to make sure that that MSME, the business they're doing, is sustainable. And I'll give a classic example. When you mentioned Agric, I actually smiled, because we had to prove a concept for a cluster of farmers in Ikorodu. These were farmers that would never have access to credit because they had, bad credit history, and some of them didn't have any credit history at all. So we asked ourselves, how do we expect these guys to actually do the work they need to do? Bear in mind that the agriculture sector right now is one that is a concern for most of us in terms of food security and all that. And we realized that if we could adjust the flexibility in how we service their loan, we could actually get them to access credit and then be able to pay back. And we've proven it because by clustering these farmers, we've created a model where we could bring in an off-taker, we could bring in insurance, we could bring in mechanizing skills, we could bring in everything that that farmer would need for them to be sustainable.
Okay,
I think that's financial
thank
inclusion.
You. I've just been reminded now that we have really run out of time.
Honestly, I can have a conversation as long as I need to. Please grab me at the end of this. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Please reach out to her, and I would employ the secretariat that if they have a website where the speakers can be reached, so that the audience can reach out to them individually. One last word, please, from the World Women Banking. One last word. We've just been reminded that we have really run out of time, and we didn't even have the opportunity to take questions. So one last word. How can you fit in your program into the broader goal of Nigeria's road path to achieving its goal of financial inclusion? What is the most critical thing that you think, in one sentence, please?
Okay. Like I said, we work with policymakers, regulators, and private sector, the financial service providers. And I think what we need is that collaboration.
Collaboration. So I take away collaboration from what you've just said. Yes, and you, Dr. Oluwatu? No, her.
Building on that, I would say we need robust digital public infrastructure.
Okay, and robust digital public infrastructure. And you?
And I think we need to innovate to solve our challenges.
Sorry?
Innovate. Solve definite challenges in the market.
So I have collaboration, I have innovation, and
robust digital public infrastructure.
Digital, that is interesting. That's very good. Robust digital public infrastructure. Okay. And did any one of you agree with my mobile clinic registration of, would you agree with that?
That is an extension of actually agent network.
All right,
so it
that's
works.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. Something I took away yesterday from Professor Injuguna's presentation was the fact that they look in Kenya, they looked at the credit history but I am not sure if how we can adapt that in Nigeria. If we're talking of literacy level of the recipients, and also one thing you people failed to mention, because you all you've all been saying that the North is the part that is the least inclusive in Nigeria. But you all forgot to include the fact that one of the limiting factors of that is traditions, religion, and customs. So I wish one of you had brought that up. So that is also very critical to ensuring that the North is included because of their distrust and because of the belief that the North has concerning loan taking. What is it called? The riba? There's something, I don't know the word in English. Yes, it has to be Sharia compliant. So that's it.
But educating them and ensuring a community leader within
yes, so
that.
that brings us back to financial literacy.
Yes.
So there should be a huge, huge room and grounds for financial literacy. So that's it. And I'd like to say, in my PhD thesis, I did a whole chapter on financial inclusion. And I looked at, it was a panel data analysis. I looked at 153 countries. I have actually published this paper in a journal, Elsevier, and it showed that where you have weak institutions, it's difficult for you to attain financial inclusion. So countries that have strong institutions, they don't have the challenges that we have. So we need to start looking at these things. Any questions? Maybe we'll take one question if the committee will allow. One. So who should I call on? I'll give you the opportunity to pick who you want to ask you a question. Okay, you, the guy with the tie, quickly. Please don't give us another lecture. Go straight to your question.
All right, good morning. My name is Emmanuel. So my question is this. So I understand that the fight for financial inclusion is close to being won. I also acknowledge the efforts by the government and financial service firm to ensure that financial access gets to everybody. So now, my question is this, which is a key concern. So I want to understand, especially to you, Dr. Oluwatomi, right? So I want to know, are there any collaborative efforts with network providers to ensure that these financial assets get to everybody, especially the rural dwellers who do not have access to strong internet coverage? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I was just looking at Madam Hawa, who is sitting very close to you from NCC, and I know that there's a lot of work that they're doing around that, working with even the sub-national governments to ensure that they work with the telcos and they are able to extend, because as you rightly said, there are some communities where we don't even have network coverage, and when we ask people, we see that even in the data that there's some people who don't have that and so cannot have access. So they are doing something around that, working with the government.
Okay, thank you.
We know that we'll be able to extend
I just wanted to say that it's already ongoing. I mean, my organization, for example, is working with MMOs where you're able to take those, work with the agents, leveraging on their distribution network to be able to get to those areas. It's already going. Like I said, the cash is the enemy. What we need to do is do the collaboration so that everyone can work together.
All right, thank you. I'll take one woman so that we have a balanced. The lady in the, green? Yes. The front, yes, you. Quickly. Please, not a lecture, a question.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Amina Asabi Adamu from Central Bank of Nigeria. We all agree that collaboration, deepening our collaboration among the financial services providers will take us a way forward. So are we thinking of actually measuring the intensity of our collaboration? What device are we using to measure that intensity, because it's important?
Okay, thank you. I'll ask World Women Banking to answer, because she's taking it from a global perspective.
Okay, that's fine.
She wants to know how we measure collaboration. One sentence, please.
That's an interesting question. How do we measure collaboration? I think with the results of the collaboration. So, and I know we created this framework and these communities of practice. which was supposed to be a collaborative framework. And I know there has been challenges around that. So the issue is examining what has been the challenges that have made that collaboration not to work, and then we're going to enhance that going forward so that we can achieve the results that we want to achieve.
Thank you. Lagos State, do you want to answer that? Quickly, please. Collaboration.
I just wanted to add that it's monitoring and evaluation. We're constantly doing that on the field.
Excellent.
And we tell the stories through the eyes of the beneficiaries. Where were they before the intervention of the collaboration, and where are they now? That's how we actually tell the stories and track that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So we went to Ethiopia from NIPS to see how the commodity exchange has changed the lives of smallholder farmers. Yeah. And it was a physical viewing. They left their former warehouses and the new ones, and the tools that they used before for farming and the new mechanized farming. So we could see the transition live. On this note, we've come to the end of this panel. I hope that the audience enjoyed the conversations, and I also hope that, more importantly, that lessons have been taken out of this conversation. And we thank the organizers for seeing us worthy of and engaging us in this series. Thank you very much.
Can we please give them a round of applause? Thank you so much for your session. We'd like to take a group picture of this panel. And as we're taking that picture, I'd also like to welcome the DG of SEC, Dr. Imomotimi Agama. We have gifts to present, so we want you to join in the picture and please present our gifts to our panelists. It's time for tea break. The tea break will be pretty short. I'd like to ask everyone at this point, please, you'll move to breakout session 2. So breakout session 1 and 2 will be hosted at the spillover for your tea break. But in 10 minutes, please come back into the hall so we can continue with the program and quickly get on to our award ceremony. You know we have a number of conversations to have today, very important ones. So please make sure that you cooperate with us in terms of time. Can we please bring the gifts for Dr. Imomotimi from the backstage? Thank you. And as you share your content from here, do not forget to engage us on social media as well. The hashtag is IFIC 2024 and hashtag IFIC 24. All right. So, Doctor, please can you help us with the presentation of the gifts? Please don't be in a hurry. We have gifts for you, ma'am. Yes, we want to present gifts to you. Can you please give it to Dr. Imomotimi to do the presentation? We apologize for the mix-up. Thank you. All right, so we're just giving the gift. To give it to him, he will give to all of them. For the rest of the members in the breakout in the main room, please get to the second breakout session so you can have your tea break and come back in 10 minutes. Thank you. We have Oluwaseunpi and Mayanabo, who will probably be taking us through the next set of conversations. There'll be some virtual interviews happening behind the hall as well, and we'll be streaming that live here. So those who are in the separate breakout links, our virtual audience who have joined the different breakout links, please let's all reconnect via the main link to continue the conversations from here. All right, we also have our VVIPs, just like we did yesterday. Our VVIPs, please go to your room, the reserved room for tea break. As you're leaving, please go with your belongings, your phones, bags, laptops, go with everything. And if you found a phone that is not yours, please kindly bring it to me. Where there's one person who's looking for her phone, So if you find anything that is not yours and is not attended to, kindly bring it to me or any of the MCs so we can make an announcement. We'll reconvene here in exactly 10 minutes. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
Speakers, VIPs, and guests at the conference. And we have our first.
Okay, then welcome, ma'am. Great to see you today. And fantastic session you had there. Yeah, so we'd like you to just for our online audience, your name, organization, and what you do.
Okay, I am Dr. Ladi Balakefi, MNI, and I work with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So you just had your session. I would like you to throw more light. Were there other thoughts you have to still share, pushing your session further, and things you want the online audience to be aware of, in case they miss one or two things during your session?
Okay, during my session, what the panelists didn't mention is the fact that in the northern Nigeria, the hindrance to financial inclusion is mostly culture and religion. So if they can break that barrier through financial literacy and carrying all the, like the elders in the society along to help them talk to these people, that's how they will be able to break that barrier. And they didn't mention it, but we brought it up towards the end of the conversation.
And which of the stakeholders do you think should take ownership of this particular thing on, just sending the word out and reorientation of the people at community level to really address this barrier, cultural and religious barrier? Who takes that job on?
You mean amongst the panelists or
amongst stakeholders generally?
Okay, stakeholders. I believe the federal government, the state governments, and most especially the local governments. But the traditional rulers must have a role to play in this space. So if traditional rulers are not carried along, it will be a challenge. And I also believe that clerics will also have a big role to play in that space.
So we should probably invite them next year if they're not here this year.
Well, it's a thought that could possibly be included. Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I like the fact that she's speaking from personal experience, and that's her geopolitical zone. So she understands the issues at play. Thank you very much, ma'am. We're glad you came around. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your conference.
No, definitely. I think that, I believe that at this second International Financial Inclusion Conference, we have a wide range invitees and delegates and people attending. But coming from, we've heard this from a couple of speakers. You know, yesterday we also had someone
mentioned
that the importance of having people who are stakeholders at the community level, whether, you know, clerics, you know, royal fathers, community leaders, and I think that they need to participate in this conversation.
Yeah, they really, because we're talking about driving financial inclusion to the very last man. And she emphasized local governments, right, and the clerics. They deal with the people at the grassroots.
All right, all right. All right, we have a lot of other guests that we're going to pull into our studio.
Hello. Very interesting conversation. Sorry to cut in studio. Just come to a close, or ought to have come to a close now. It's tea break time. And we would appreciate if all, let word go out to all the moderators that expected that at this point the breakout sessions have drawn to a close from the main hall here. We have pulled the curtains on the breakout sessions. We expect all delegates now to be having tea break and make their way back to the main hall for the resumption of plenary. I will be joining the studios again. As Sean saying, they had very interesting guests lined up. Over to you for the continuation of the interview sessions. Take it over.
Okay, then we have another guest here. We're having conversations with all our panelists. Welcome, ma'am. She's Ebehi J. Mama and the CEO of Afrigo, I beg your pardon. And this, you in the main hall, right? So I'd like to hear your further thoughts on some of the issues you spoke about earlier on.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, thanks to the organizer. It's really wonderful and beautiful to be part of the panelists that talked about how do we grow economy through financial inclusion. And one of the things that I talked about is how that as a financial institution, or all that we collaborate together, is innovating in such a way that we address challenges that are in our market. And I talked about what Afrigo is doing. As you're aware, Afrigo is the Nigerian domestic car scheme. Central Bank launched it last year. And one of the things was to address affordability of transactions, because you know that when things are very expensive, it becomes very difficult for us to bring people into the financial ecosystem. And also addressing the right challenges that we have in the market would also ensure that the right people are included into the financial ecosystem. I talked specifically about the instant settlement, which is first globally, that we launched just a couple of months ago. And what that means is that today, if you take our domestic card, which is 100% Nigeria, and you use it on the POS for merchants that are MSMEs, who we are talking about here today, it means that they get instant settlement. What that means is that today, if you are a pepper seller, or you are your total cash or revenue in a day is 100,000, you can go back. That's soft capital. We're talking about credit. We don't have to wait 1 or 2 days to go back to the market, and it brings trust. People don't want you to use the digital solution because they are not sure they'll get their money. That's one. And then I also talked about addressing challenges like where we have. We talked about access, the infrastructure, and I said we have been able to collaborate with a fintech, which is why collaboration is important in solving financial inclusion issues. And I said by just collaborating with Touch and Pay, what we have been able to do is that today we can use our card, whether it's giving the option of offline capability as well as online. Those are some of the things I think that we need to begin to put our money and our mouth with what we are saying. We need to solve the problem, and that's what Afrigo is doing. Thank you.
I love your passion.
Really
the passion is contagious. Do you have a stand here at the exhibition?
Yes, definitely. We have a stand at the exhibition. Please come around. And then again, we are talking about reducing cost of transaction. Go to your bank. Ask them for an Afrigo card, because that's the card that you're able to transact here in Nigeria, and you have significantly reduced cost.
Thank you so much. It was really good to talk to you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So please go visit the Afrigo stand if you're here physically. Thank you, ma'am.
viewers, ladies and gentlemen. The more you clap, the more friendly CBN will be to all of us.
The financial ecosystem is a complex network of interconnected entities. Each plays a crucial role in shaping the future of electronic banking and payments.
On this particular topic, ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to just welcome Mr. Olu Akamu as he comes up to make their presentation. I'm very sure the slides are up.
And the expansion of market has to be a balance between market and society. It's not just about how much money we want to make. It's about whether we are solving society's problem.
Our team is behind. Thank you for laying that foundation. And I'm sure this session is where we're going to really pay attention and make all of what we are.
Execution that happened over the last decade.
Earlier when we started out, when you asked the first question, I said the customer-centric solutions.
Right? Companies that have ecosystem focus, right? They have 1.73 times faster ability to get to the market more than the others, right? And this is a fact that's showing that companies that are ecosystem.
Wait, are we there yet? No, definitely not. But we've definitely come a long way.
However, we need to interrogate how far we have come and the efforts that we are making and that we have made to ensure that there is an active collaboration.
So thank you all. The networking continues as you are on your way home. We hope to see you bright and shining in the hall tomorrow by 9 o'clock.
Peter and the organizers are deputy. Can you swing to the left? Swing to the right? Swing to the left? Swing to the left? All right, raise your hands up. Aha. Put it down. Stand akimbo. This is akimbo. Oya, go down a bit. Oya, come up. Stand akimbo again. To the left. To the right. To the left. Did I hear crack, crack, crack somewhere?
Anything we do has a regulatory cover. And I talked about working in partnerships.
Dispute management. I know when you talk about card processing, the first
distinguished ladies and gentlemen, tea break is over. Can we please start making our way back into the hall for the rest of the conversation?
Ladies and
gentlemen, can we please start making our way back into the hall? Please, from the different breakout sessions, come back to the main hall so we can reconvene. Thank you.
We have witnessed
We're glad you're here today. Please, for our online viewers, I'd like to know your name and what you do and what prompted your being here today.
Thank you very much. My name is